Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week we're going to be thinking about barriers, about things which get in the way of other things or prevent things from happening. And I wanted to think in the Rural Challenge about some of the barriers that there are for people to come and join our church communities. What does it mean for people to find it an easy way to join our church community? And there are so many things to think about. When you think about this, how do people even know what our church community is doing? How do people maybe physically access the buildings where we meet? How do people feel that they are welcome or that they would be welcome in our church communities? A lot of this is about communication, about how people feel that they're invited, and this is part of the whole change which is happening in culture, and that people may feel that they're not invited into buildings, Church of England buildings, where maybe people would have previously felt that that was their place by right. But also, what does it mean for someone to be invited into the community? When I was reflecting on this week, I remember how we moved into a rural village 20 years ago, and we went to the church building, which was the nearest church building to where we lived, and we could not find any notices, anything up on the notice board about when the services took place in that church building. There was nothing. Now, it might have been that we were there on the day in between someone changing the notices, but there was nothing. And we didn't join that church community, even though we had gone looking to join that church community, because there was nothing on the notice board to say, actually, this is when the service takes place. You would be welcome to join us. So I think there are other things in some very rural places. Actually, physically getting to where the church community is meeting can be difficult, and there are also questions about accessibility. One of the projects which we run where I'm working at the moment is very good. It seems to be a very accessible project, which is great, but I do worry about the fact that there's 6 steps in order to get into the building, and there is nothing that we can do about that. If we're going to meet in that community space in that village, there are 6 steps, and so in one way that is not an accessible place for us to be at all, and many of the church buildings where I work are equally stepped, and so there's not step-free access for people. How is it do we make our church communities accessible for people? What is it that we do? How do we tell people, how do we encourage people that they would be welcome to join part of our church community? How do we communicate that through our villages? Thought for the week this week is based on Mark chapter 10 verses 17 to 30, where Jesus has a discussion with a young man who wants to be saved. He wants to effectively become a follower of Jesus, and Jesus asks him questions, and the man says, I've done all these things, I've done all the things that you would normally expect. And then Jesus says to him, go and sell all your possessions and then come and follow me. And he can't do that. He can't get rid of his possessions. Now, usually when I'm preaching on this part of Mark, and also when I'm preaching about the sending out of the 72 with taking nothing with you, I talk about possessions and how things that we have, physical things that we have, clutter, the things that we own, can really take hold of our lives, and how we deal with those things, what we think about that. But this week, when I've been preparing, I've been thinking much more about what it is in our lives which is a barrier to us following Jesus. And in some ways, this thought for the week is going to be quite short, because the question has to be, for each individual, what is your barrier that's preventing you from following Jesus? So Jesus had spotted in this young man that it was to do with the money. It was to do with the wealth, it was to do with the possessions, it was to do with his understanding of what it meant to be him and what it meant to have things. That was his problem in following Jesus. But there are all sorts of barriers, and they're very individual barriers. Now, the question, if I was setting homework for this week would be, what thing in your life is Jesus telling you that you need to get rid of so that you can follow him better? What is that thing? And that will be different for all sorts of people. There'll be behaviours that are learnt, which are stopping people from following Jesus. They can be things which we do, which we were taught were good things to do, or it could be things which have come from a situation where someone has maybe told us that we're not good enough to follow Jesus, and there could be some destructive things to work on that need turning around. So the question is not so much for each of us getting rid of all our possessions, unless we really think that would be the thing that Jesus would tell us to do. But what is it that Jesus would say to us, this is what you need to do, you need to get rid of this thing from your life, because this is the thing which is stopping you following me? That's a really personal question and a challenge for each individual one of us. So this week, maybe we can think, what is it in my life which is stopping me from following Jesus as well as I could? And what does Jesus want me to do about it? The Dibley moment for the week this week is a little bit of a reflection about church doors. So a few weeks ago somebody was trying to get into one of our church buildings, which was not locked, but they could not get in, and it took a little while to find someone who could go down and help them with the door, and that person, the church is locked, the church is clearly locked. No, the church was not locked. You needed to lift the latch by turning the latch. Then you needed to give the door a shove. Quite a big shove, to be fair, but you just needed to give it a shove. I was thinking about this for the Dibley moment, then I realised that exactly the same thing had happened to me a few weeks ago in a church building that I was not familiar with. I thought it was locked, and then eventually one of us was brave enough to lift the latch properly and then give it a big enough shove to get into the church building. So if you're ever trying to access a church building which you don't think is locked, but you can't get in very easily, then do the lift the latch, give it a big shove thing. However, if you're a custodian of a church building with a sticky door, please just put a notice that says the church is unlocked in these times. Just be brave and give it the door a big shove. That's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week where you can all take away some of the barriers which are stopping you from following Jesus.